this video, we're going to show you how to change the spark plugs on your 2007 GG Subaru Impreza engine. This is a non-WRX model, and this is the EJ201 single overhead cam style engine. So for this, you need spanners, socket set, preferably anti-seize lubricant and dielectric grease. We've got Bosch OEM grade spark plugs, which you need 4 of, and a spark plug socket. So the first step is to remove the airbox system from the driver's side of the vehicle. So to do this, there's 3 bolts scattered around the airbox. There's one here on the upper radiator support. Next up, there's 2 right down here on the chassis rail. So you need a pretty long extension to get to these. And the other one is just down here. Once you've undone both of those, you need to pull out the air pipe out of this box. It simply pulls out with a bit of force, like so. And this box should lift out. And on this side, there's just a light rubber grommet which will pop out as soon as you pull it out. And out comes the air intake. Now, on the passenger side of the vehicle, or the driver's side, depending on what country you're in, we're now going to remove the battery to free up plenty of space down here. Now, when you're removing the battery, be careful not to undo it all the way, this nut, as you'll drop this metal prong straight down underneath your car. Move this out of the way slightly. So I might take this prong out and just slide the battery out. Undoing the negative lead first. Being very careful not to touch between negative and positive with your spanner like that. Now that we've taken off the negative lead and put it safely away from the terminal, we're just undoing the positive as well. Now these clamps are a little bit tight, so we're just using a screwdriver to help pry them off. Once these 2 are away, we can pull out the battery. So we've just pulled out the battery tray and the securing mechanism. Now we've just unclipped the cable here, the loom, and pushed it out of the way. You unfortunately can't really remove the fuse box, so that will have to stay here. But now we've got relatively enough room to get to these 2 spark plugs, but the space is far more limited compared to the other side. So the first step is to remove the spark plug lead from the spark plug. To do this, using 2 hands, pull on the boot. You don't have to get your fingers behind there just to tug it out. Being very careful not to pull on the actual lead itself. So it pulls out like that. There's our ignition lead. So we'll just focus on one side for the meantime. Now the next step is to get your spark plug socket and a long extension and insert it in there to pick up the spark plug. Now one of the reasons of using a spark plug socket is that there's a little rubber grommet in here which will pick up the spark plug and hold on to it after you've loosened it off. So go ahead and insert this in here. There'll be a click as you go over the spark plug like so, which is the rubber grommet picking it up. Go ahead and get our wrench onto here, and like so. Now generally spark plugs aren't done up very tight, so this shouldn't be very hard to undo. Now be very gentle undoing it and not giving it any hard bangs. If it is in fact a little bit tight, use a breaker bar, otherwise you risk damaging the alloy heads. Like so, spark plug will come out. Whilst we're here, you want to have a look inside the actual cavity here where the spark plug sits and ensure there's no oil leaking from around this seal. There's a common fault with Subarus where this seal will leak oil from the rocker cover into the spark plug valleys. And just looking at here, I'm just dabbing it with my finger, there's no oil to be found, which is good. So here we have the old spark plug and the new one. Here on the new spark plug, the gap between the tip and the arm is 1.1 millimeters. And this one used to be 1.1 millimeters, but as you can see over time, the arm's worn down significantly, creating a gap of probably 3 to 4 millimeters, which gives you poor sparking. So these spark plugs are significantly older than they should be. They're probably in the car for probably, I reckon, 50 or 60,000 kilometers. Now I'm just applying some anti-seize using a cotton bud to the new spark plug. We've used Permatex aluminium grade anti-seize lubricant. You need to make sure that's aluminium That means it's compatible with an aluminium engine block like we've got here, but check the packet, it will say if it's suitable for spark plugs and aluminium heads. If you use traditional copper-based anti-seize, you run the risk of actually damaging the aluminium as it eats into it. So removing the actual socket set from the breaker, the socket from the ratchet, so you can freely handle it, you want to insert it back in, like so. You want to turn it very gently until it's found the thread. Now I say very, very gently, because you want to be very, very careful not to cross thread it. Now using our ratchet back on, first time spark plug. Now the manufacturer's handbook rates something around 20 Newton meters of torque, which is very, very little. So we're going to go ahead and give it a slight tug like so, and I'm confident that's tight enough. You don't need to go all out tightening them. They take very little force. Plus we've got anti-seize in there, which will help us for the next time we need to remove it. The next step is to reinstall the spark plug lead. Now first of all, you want to make sure that's nice and clean, no grum's gotten on there. We're going to go ahead and install a small amount of dielectric grease into this boot. And dielectric grease essentially helps conduct electricity. So using a toothpick, I'm just spreading this around, which also helps to actually slide it onto the spark plug, which is also helpful. So we've done that. Now I suggest doing one spark plug at a time, as that way you won't cross up the leads and mix them up the wrong way. So sliding this back over the spark plug now, giving it a firm push, like so, and you should feel it click into place with a rubber kind of click as it seats back into the hole. Moving on to the next spark plug over here. So same process, pull out the spark plug lead. This you need two hands. Like so, give it a bit of a yank. Can be quite difficult sometimes. Placing it down there. Inspecting for any oil. Just go ahead and put my finger in there. It's a bit warm, but thankfully there's no oil leaks on this engine, which has done 100,000 Ks now. So this spark plug change is part of the required interval. So I'm going to go ahead and get my socket into here. Pushing it onto the boot like so. Yep, that's locked in. And as you can see, there's plenty of room on this side of the engine bay, but we're going to have a bit of trouble when we get to the other side. There you go. So we're getting ready to put the new spark plug in now. Just putting some anti-seize on there again. Give it a light spread. Nice even coverage. Like so. And then again, put it back onto our spark plug socket. Like that. Into the valley. And very lightly by hand, feeling to make sure that's going in correctly in the threads. Slight turn in. Like so. I'm confident that's now tight enough. So now just putting some dielectric grease in the spark plug lead. Spreading that around with a toothpick. Like so. Very nice. And then gently inserting the lead of the spark plug, giving it a push until you feel the click. So make sure they're nice both and firm in there. And that is the driver side completed. And now we'll work on the next two. So now we're on to the other side of the vehicle. And we're pulling off the first ignition lead. Like so. Pull it out and push it out of the way. Checking for oil, and there's nothing in here, which is good. So now we've just pulled out the old spark plug, much like the other ones, all in about the same condition. So again, just putting some anti-seize on the new spark plug, like so, and reinserting it in much like before, lightly doing it up by hand to make sure you're not cross threading. And now the spark plug's tight. Now we'll go ahead and get some dielectric grease onto the lead. I'm just spraying it around with the toothpick. And straight back onto the spark plug. So now we're just pulling out the last spark plug we need to do. I'll move this lead out of the way so you can see it on the camera. Go ahead and pull out the spark plug. Put a couple of dabs of anti-seize on the thread. And straight back in there. Hand tight. We'll go ahead and pull this out. Perfect. Then we'll get our lead. Add some dielectric grease in there. Spread it around with a toothpick. And go and reinsert it on the spark plug. So now we've just reinstalled the battery. I'm just doing the clamps nicely. These aren't going to be too tight. You'll clamp down on the battery pretty quickly, like so. Make sure your terminal is nice and secured, and then we'll reinstall the air intake. So we've just gone ahead and installed the stock airbox. We'll put the 2 bolts down there in. And we've got the 10mm on top here. And lastly, we're installing this tubing, which simply pushes into place. So you click like so. And now we're ready to test the car. So now that we've reinstalled the airbox, got the battery going, we're now ready to start the car and make sure it actually works. You always feel a little bit doubtful after you've done something like this. But let's give it a shot. Beautiful. Started like a charm. And it sounds like it's running fine and firing on all cylinders. Go ahead and turn it off again. So it looks like we've done a pretty good job. And the spark plugs seem to be operating perfectly well. That pretty much concludes our tutorial for today. For more guides, head over to AutoInstruct.com.au and please subscribe to our YouTube channel.